Presenters and attendees, please mute your microphones and turn off your video feeds if you're not speaking. For those attending via telephone, you can mute and unmute your microphones by dialing *6. The top toolbar contains a raise your hand feature in case a commission member or presenter has a question during the meeting. Commissioners and presenters may share their screens using the share content box above. The chat box will also be checked routinely. This is just mainly to address logistical questions or issues that may come up during the meeting. As way of information, we'll be holding a public comment period at the beginning of this meeting. Each public commenter will have up to 3 minutes for public comment, and I will signal to the speaker once time is up. Thank you very much, and I will turn it over to Bill.
Great. Thanks very much, Marco. What I want to do first of all is actually, let me do this. I just wanted to we have several guests here, and since we're not live, I know it's sometimes difficult to do, but I just wanted to go down the list in case people are checking on it, who were attendees at the meeting, just the Park and Rec Commission members who I see in attendance so far. And I'll just go down that list, and then again, we may have some new people coming in. First, I'm Bill Ross. I'm chairman of the commission. I see that Gerald Brand, who's been our wonderful liaison from APS, is here tonight. Colt Gregory, Dean Foster, Drew Murray, who's our liaison from the sports commission's here. Jill Barker. Kevin Manuel, who I still need to talk with. I know he's expressed possible interest in getting involved with the Park and Rec Commission. Thank you very much for coming, Kevin. Let's see, Mark Lincoln's here, Melissa Reggio, Peter Harnick, and Adam Rasmussen. And I'm not sure if I missed anybody else. So anyway, thank you all. First thing we like to do, check out the agenda, is consideration of the September 28th minutes. Did anybody have any mistakes, errors, omissions, or additions to the minutes? All right, if that's the case, with permission from the commission, I will just declare them approved as prepared. Next thing to do, and just as you see, we've got a very, very truncated agenda tonight, unusual for us over the last year or so, and maybe that's a good thing, but we'll be able to have some other discussions on other items too a little bit later. But first of all, we wanted to do public comment, and Marco, I understand we had a couple of presenters of public comment today.
That's correct. Our first speaker tonight will be Andrea Cowley, followed by Bernard Byrne. So Andrea, whenever you're ready, we can get started.
All right, thank you very much. You guys should be able to see the presentation and myself.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. So my name is Andrea Cowley. I live in the Fairlington neighborhood in South Arlington, and I just had a little idea that I wanted to propose to you guys about possibly adding a DIY fix-it stand to the Jenny Dean Park. So I've got this map of South Arlington. It's the Arlington Bicycle Map. The white diamonds are paid bicycle repair locations. The green diamonds are locations that have free DIY fix-it stands. As you can see, there's nothing free south of the Pike except for Crystal City, which is quite a far way away from South Arlington. But the only even paid repair option in South Arlington is up the extremely steep Fairlington Hill just outside of Shirlington. Quite difficult for novice and low fitness users. So I thought that the Jenny Dean Park location might be great for multiple reasons. I've got this picture here, taken on a Saturday no less, of multiple bicycles locked up to a fence near the WIDA and the Weenie Beanie parking lots. This wasn't all of them. There were more on the other fence, but I was respecting privacy and not taking pictures of people. The bicycles themselves seem to be used in significant portion by the day laborers who still go to the old day laborer gazebo spot. Not only that, but it's the intersection of what I think is the two prongs of the 4 Mile Run Trail. The one going the east direction. There's the WOND trailhead, and it's the entry point for all the Fairlington and Shirlington infrastructure users. Not only that, but the nearby shops and apartment buildings also generate some more local traffic. I think it'd be great to put a DIY Fix-It stand somewhere in the Jenny Dean Park. I know it's under construction, so things are in flux, and it seems like the perfect opportunity to make that one little change. Obviously, there's low impact tactical changes like just putting bollards around 1 or 2 parking spaces, or working with Nova Parks to put one in at the WOND trailhead. We could blend it in a little better if you wanted to put in something with the gateway feature that already goes, which is already a street crossing with one of our many bicycle trails. Or I thought maybe into the playground feature if you wanted it to have a lower visual impact with the other parks' green spaces. As far as cost, of course, I'm not county staff, so I don't know. But obviously, you guys would have the power to ask about that. But I do know one thing about contract mods and construction, and that sooner is always better. Obviously, some options might involve talking to Nova Parks, and I have no idea what that entails. But the stations themselves are pretty cheap. The highest end goes for less than $2,000 each. And I was thinking that we could, you guys could look into something very similar to the way it works in Crystal City, where there's also like a vending opportunity nearby. I know there's the Weenie Beanie and the Weta, so it's not like there's no electricity available for such a thing. Anyways, I think that's exactly 3 minutes.
Yes,
So I'll
thank you so
quit
much.
right there.
Great. Hold on. I'm getting myself back here. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I think that's something that outside of this meeting, we can a couple of us can think about around questions, and if you'd like to get a hold of me, contact me, and I know some of the other members of the commission might have thoughts on this too, and just think of some of the questions we can have afterwards there. So. Any case, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Very interesting idea. Marco, do you want to give me your next guest?
Yes. The next and final speaker is Bernard Byrne.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yes. I'm here to talk about the public space Potomac Yards Land Bay Sea East project, which we'll be discussing, I think, in the next first item. This is an improvement. There's more area for plantings and things like that than there was the last time. It appears that the applicant has listened to what you recommended. I would like to carry this a little further because I haven't seen a planting list on this project yet. I don't know if it exists. I tried to find on the site plan. I really couldn't get anywhere. So this kind of is an addendum. Anyway, I'd like to request that the applicant concentrate those plantings and those planters and on the streets next to this next to the street on pollinator plants, and not plant ornamental ornamental grasses, things like that. Those are wind pollinated. They don't help pollinators, honeybees, monarch butterflies, etc. So that's important because in many parks, a perfect example of this was Mosaic Park recently, which they planted a lot of grasses. Some were lawns, some were just ornamental grasses. And those aren't going to help the pollinators. Turned out they actually planted relatively few pollinator plants. So let's not see this happen here in either park or a private project. Also plant milkweed for the monarch butterflies. The county board has issued a monarch pledge, which says specifically plant milkweed, encourage developers to plant milkweed and other pollinator plants. Milkweed, this is something again for the applicant to write down. The only good pollinator plant that will survive for milkweed, only good milkweed that will survive well and will attract monarchs and monarchs will breed on, is what's called common milkweed. It's Asclepias Syriaca, Syrica. The others either won't attract, butterflies won't lay, monarchs won't lay eggs on them, or they'll only last for a few years. That's been shown in published studies. So that's the message here. Plant pollinator plants now. Don't plant ornamental grasses. Maybe have a few in there, but not. It should be predominantly pollinator plantings. That's in all your and everywhere there is there in your planters along the sidewalk, whatever. Just concentrate on those, and also make sure you put milkweed there for monarch butterflies. Preferably that Asclepias syriaca or common milkweed. Your landscape architect should know about this, hopefully, and put it in the planting list. I don't see the planting list anywhere, and I would really like to see this commission, others be able to, and the county board be able to see the planting list before it actually comes there. A lot of times it's just not there. So that's basically what I have to say.
Great. Thank you very much, Bernie. Appreciate it. And yeah, a couple of your thoughts, I think will come up in our discussion shortly. All right. Next, I think is our only real newer item on the agenda is discussion of changes to the plans at the Potomac Yards Land Bay East, excuse me. And this is something I think I can't remember, a few months ago, we saw initial plans. I know that David Howell, who spent quite a bit of time being involved with the Site Plan Review Commission meetings and talking to some of the other landscape folks there during the period, was involved in it. I sat in on a couple of meetings also. And so anyway, what I wanted to do was, I guess it's Lauren Riley from Walsh Colucci. If you could talk to us for a few minutes about what the changes are.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bill. And good evening, commissioners. Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm Lauren Riley with Walsh Colucci, and we represent the applicant here, Zom Living. And we're joined tonight with some representatives from Zom, as well as their landscape architect, Amal from LSG. And before we get into the landscape presentation, I'd just like to briefly orient everybody on the recent history here with the site plan. As Bill said, we recently got our 4.1 site plan approved this year. You may recall that we were before you this past May to present our proposed 4.1 site plan for Land Bay C East in the Potomac Yard PDSP, and that's now known as the Hazel National Landing Site. The county board approved our 4.1 site plan this past June, and the site plan permits 2 mixed-use multifamily buildings with ground floor retail and below-grade parking. And the site plan also features what will become a part of North Park Plaza, a public park envisioned by the Potomac Yard PDSP. And we're here to present a change, an administrative change to this park area. You may recall that there was a large water fountain there in between the 2 buildings, and we had received a lot of feedback from you and other SPRC members. And there's also now some concern about maintenance of such a large water feature there. So we've decided to amend this landscape plan, and our site plan conditions require that we go through a public process because of the public nature of the park here. So that's why we're here before you today. And I'll hand it off now to Amal with LSG to present the specific changes.
All right. Thanks, Lauren. Can everybody see my screen and hear my voice?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you, commissioners, for your time here. I'm going to quickly walk you through the changes we are proposing. And we also had posted a video, so some of you may have had a chance to look at that. But Lauren has instructed me to briefly go through this, so I'll be brief, but obviously we'll answer any questions you may have. This slide here shows the approved site plan for the Land Bay C. And obviously, this is the Land Bay C East parcel that this project is about. This is the west parcel, which is not part of the project. Just for your orientation, north is over here on the left. So the Potomac Avenue is on the east and 33rd Street is on the south. This one here shows the approved site plan, the design of the plaza. And you can see it's sort of with the central feature of the water, central water feature here that was always part of the design from day one, but we obviously modified this whole design together with all of you and the community, incorporated a lot of their suggestions, but the water features still remain as part of the central passageway. Although we did receive a lot of comments throughout the engagement process that, you know, people are concerned about the water feature because it's not an year-round attraction. The county also has very strict regulations towards the safety and security of, you know, the people around. And also the community and the county really were pushing to get more organic feel to this design and more areas for planting and less impervious surface. So we did get this plan approved, but we still took your suggestions to heart, and our team worked together to modify that design. So I'm just going to quickly walk you through that. So this shows the previous, so meaning currently approved. So sorry if this kind of gets confusing sometimes, but this is the approved design as we speak. And we are proposing to modify that with this type of approach, where it's more of a meandering, nice garden-esque pathway. We are incorporating a lot of native plant material. And yes, Dr. Bernie, we will incorporate a lot of butterfly and pollinator gardens in here, species that promote pollinators in this area as well. Butterfly weed, we'll have to investigate the one that you suggested, because this is something that needs to be maintained and needs to look nice throughout the year. So, but we will investigate and see if we can incorporate the one that you are suggesting. But I know for the fact that we are incorporating some, you know, butterfly weed and all that good stuff in this planting palette. We are also incorporating a lot of boulders and smaller sculptures to go towards the biophilic character of this space. This shows the side-by-side comparison of the two. On the left-hand side, that's the currently approved design, whereas on the right-hand side, that's the proposed design. You can see we have a lot more planting area because this entire water feature is gone. And then in place of that, we are expanding the planting areas. In order to get a little bit of sense of water, we did incorporate an sort of an interactive water feature, if you will, or a splash pad at grade. And I know that there are some comments out there with respect to this, but I can elaborate that further if there is a question about it. But right now, as presented in our video, we do have an interactive fountain here at this location. This slide here shows the side-by-side comparison of the two. This is the approved, this is the proposed. Once we made the changes to the central passage area, we wanted to complement that with minor tweaks to the area over on this side. So as you might recall, the previous slide, we had more of a rectangular-ish lawn area, but we wanted to just tweak the shape of that a little bit so that it flows well with the central passage area design. And we incorporated a longer, elongated sort of a planting area towards this western edge of building 2. Just that's where it gets more sun and more natural light. And we used to have some more planting areas right against the building, but obviously you're not going to get any natural light there. So we pushed all of that planting area more towards the edge of the building, where you will get a lot more natural light. All other elements in this particular area here, they all remain the same. We still have the stepped seating area, the lawn, the seating alcoves, and all of that is still there as is currently approved. So this is a view of the approved area looking towards the 33rd Street. And this is the proposed. So you can see the modifications we made to the central passage area, the interactive fountain, and a slightly curving lawn area and the seating portion here. And then that's the elongated planting area in the distance there that I just spoke of. But all the other elements, the catenary lighting, furniture, and steps, they all remain the same. That's the side-by-side comparison of the two. This is looking towards the north. So building 1 is in the distance. This is building 2. That's the lawn. This is the approved design. And then we want to replace that with a lot more biophilic, a lot more curvilinear, organic, if you will, a lot more planting areas. And we that's the proposed design for this perspective. That's the side-by-side comparison of the two. And these are some reference images, how we envisioning integration of boulders and other biophilic elements into the landscape. So the picture on the left here shows how potentially the boulders can be engaged with the landscape. We are also reducing our reliance on strict geometric paving pattern, because the columns and building architecture has shifted a little bit. It doesn't quite align with things in the landscape. And we now have this opportunity with curvilinear landscape that we don't necessarily have to stick to it. So we are taking that advantage of that and changing some of the paving patterns, reducing our reliance on the architectural geometry, so to speak. And that's about it. Sorry about that. So that's about the presentation, but really happy to answer any questions you may have.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Deshpande and Lauren. First of all, I want to get to some, I know we'll have some questions here. A couple of questions. I know it came up with a previous request. Do you have, is there a plant list here? And I know there has been a big push and extreme desire to focus where we can on native plants. Do you have a plant list?
Yeah, we do have a plant. It's not part of this presentation right now, but we did submit a detailed plant list along with our site plan submission, which is landscape plan submission, sorry, and right, which is very similar to this design. So yes, a detailed planting list has been submitted to the county. Okay,
well, for the benefit of the commission, can maybe walk through just briefly, like what some of your major plantings are, your trees there, and even some of the bushes. I know we can talk about the pollinator plants too, but could you just run through those if it's not complete, at least kind of a summary?
Sure, I'm gonna have to look at my plan here. So as far as the native trees are concerned, what we have is we have some sweet gum, sorghum, we have willow oaks, shumar oaks, and red oaks. So we are using those based on the trees that are on the other side of the street, right? In terms of ornamental trees and native ornamental trees, we obviously have red buds. We have some summer sweet clethra. Well, that's a shrub. So in terms of ornamental trees, we only have, I can see, we have some red buds and we have some arborvitae, but that's arborvitae is not necessarily native. The other non-native trees that we have, but they are still really good trees. We have some ginkgos, and we have some European hornbeam. And it all depends on the quality of space, what's adjacent to the trees and everything. So we have to balance out quite a bit, as you can imagine, in a tight urban space. So we do have a few that are not native, but we predominantly the planting palette is native. in terms of shrubs, we have clever. Looking at the pictures here, we have some hydrangeas, native hydrangeas, inkberries, Virginia sweetspire. So those are some of the native shrubs that I can see here. We have lots of perennials as well. We have Joe Pye weed, milkweed, geranium, alum root. Then we have phlox, some daisies. We have some muhly grass, which is a native grass.
Mhm.
We do have some other ornamental grasses such as Calamagrostis. But, you know, so the planting palette is, we're trying to balance it out, you know, the need for making sure that the plan looks, the space looks organized and neat throughout the year. There is some interest year round, but at the same time, it is easy to maintain, easy to procure, cost effective, and all those things as well. So, but we are definitely pushing the agenda of incorporating native plant material. So we care dearly about that as well ourselves. And we know that Arlingtonians care a lot about it as well. So we definitely are pushing to incorporate more native plant materials. Does that
Great,
help?
thank you. That was really good. I appreciate the fairly thorough list there. And so as a reminder, someone who's really interested in the details can look at the 4.1 submission, your landscape submission, I assume, right?
Yeah, 4.1,
Well,
not landscape plan submission. Sorry, Bill.
Landscape, right, got it. Yeah, thank you. I'll have another thought or two, but let me go to Colt Gregory and then Peter Harnick. Colt.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation and the reworking, and I really like to see the before and after sides of things, and it looks like we've got a little bit less hard space escape and a little more green space. I'm sorry that David couldn't make it here. I know he made some very, David Howe made some excellent comments on this, on the original plans, and it looks like you've taken much of that to heart. I have a general, well, maybe a more general question is, we do, I think increasingly people are recognizing that the biophilic approach in Arlington is important. We're trying to do this in more spaces than just this space. One of the challenges that we have is being sure that the actual plants selected can actually live there. And I just didn't know if you guys did a sun study or not.
Well, we definitely did do a sun study. We don't have it as part of this presentation.
No, that's okay. I was just curious.
But we definitely consider the lighting conditions, and that's the challenge, you know, like, yes,
Yeah.
we want to have all the beautiful native plants, but sometimes, you know, there is not a good plant for a situation, and that's where we have to go with a adapted, you know, plant that can still thrive. So yeah, we did certainly have looked into the light, and I have here on the call here with me Dave Norton from our office. He's a horticulturist as well. He has a degree in it, and arborist as well. So we work on the plan together. So we definitely pay a lot of attention to that.
Okay, no, thank you. I mean, we've seen presentations where pollinators were promised in areas of deep shade, and we found those to be suspect.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be sure that all the homework was done, and it certainly looks that to be the case. Thank you so much. And I will check out the 4.1 submission. Is that what that's called?
A landscape plan submission.
Landscape plan. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for your comment.
Let's see, let's go to Peter Harnick and then Jill Barker.
Okay. Hi, Amal and Lauren and Dave. Thank you for the presentation. I don't really have strong feelings either way. I like plants and I like water. Both of them look pretty good. I just have a kind of an obscure question here. What is Hazel National Landing? What is the Hazel? I've never heard of that.
Thank you, Peter. I'll let Andy Creton with ZOM here answer that. Their team came up with this name, and I believe it relates to Amazon's national landing branding, bringing that to this area.
Well, I mean, I've heard of National Landing, but is this still Hazel?
Hi, Andy, are you on the line? We cannot hear you if you are.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Sorry, I apologize. After a year and a half, I still haven't figured this out. In any event, this project has 2 buildings. You can see that here on the plan, and we may not have the elevations, but we went with building 1 is going to be called Hazel, and building 2 is going to be called Azure. And ZOM has starts with a Z, and so we try to, from a marketing perspective, we try to get a Z in each of the names that we have for our project. And so you can see Hazel to the right, which is building 1, has some green in it, and Azure, which is more associated with blue, on building 2. So that's how we came up with a way to differentiate the 2 buildings.
Oh, I see. Because Hazel's kind of a flashpoint in this area. He's a major land developer, and he's
yeah.
So I didn't know.
No longer with us, right?
I'm not sure.
One of the Hazels isn't with us anymore, I think.
I don't know that Till is still around, but in any event.
Okay, I was just wondering if he had bought his way into this, and just there's so much conversation about names in Arlington now, and we just got Jefferson Davis out of the picture, so I was a little surprised. So this is just the color hazel.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for that clarification. I think we appreciated that. Jill Barker.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
I'm going to turn my video off because I think it's clearer. So I just wanted to mention that a couple of times you referred to making sure that it looks nice, or that it looks organized and neat. And I think one of the challenges that we all face as promoters of native plants is changing our orientation to what looks good. And I was, the value in native plants and in pollinators is in the life that they support, is in being able to see the bees and the birds and the creatures that are thriving. Maybe not so much the dead stems that are supporting the larvae of the insects, and so on and so on. So I would just suggest and ask that you consider putting in some signage that would help educate the public. Your pictures indicate that there's going to be quite a lot of traffic, foot traffic there. And if you could put in some signage explaining why it might not always look nice in the traditional sense, but is looking very nice in the biodiversity sense, that might be a potential solution. So thank you again for making the change and listening to the comments.
Thank you, Jill. We had a similar comment from staff as well on placing some signage throughout this area, and our team is looking into that as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this is an issue that we all face is even as homeowners. You try to go to more and more native, and I put in my pollinator garden, and I've still got my 1980s sensibilities about gardens also, like a lot of us do. And obviously you're dealing with the commercial space and that kind of thing, so it does require some education. And but I think it seems like the industry or the landscape folks are coming up with ways to coordinate things and to mix plants in, so that yes, we know they're native and they support life and do all those things we want them to, but they also can have a certain look, during all parts of the year. So thanks, Jill. No, I appreciate that. I'm trying to think if I saw anything else. I just wanted to get back to and maybe catch an opinion or two by the commission. I appreciate very much the concerns about why you decided to move away from the major water feature there. A few years ago, when I was getting involved in some of the SPRC processes, I wandered around the county, and I was just trying to do a survey of our privately owned public spaces and the features and what worked and what didn't work. And the one thing that struck me at one point in the middle of July, I was wandering around and I saw numerous fountains that were non-operational. And I did a PowerPoint on this and delivered it to staff and the county board and everything. And I called this the dead fountain syndrome. And so in the sense of the concerns about maintenance, of just about, motors break down and they're the motor that came from Sweden, or there's a leak in the pipe. It just happens a lot. And I know there's been a lot of improvements in there. So I do appreciate that. Yeah, water features are wonderful. And if you can do them, they're good. But then it's just all, what do they look like in the middle of wintertime? I mean, that's the other thing too. And I know it sounds like you took that into account. And so, again, I very much appreciate that. The one question I had was, though, you've got the interactive proposal, and we have these in, trying to think how many of our county parks. We have the splash fountain types things. What are the issues or the maintenance issues with those? I'm just kind of curious.
Well, in general, the interactive fountain, it has issues just like you mentioned, other water feature issues, motors and everything there is a lot of maintenance involved in it. The water, because people are actually interacting with it physically, it has to become, although it is recirculated, it definitely has to go through a lot of filtration and clean up and everything so that it becomes potable water, essentially, that people can drink it and be safe with it. So that's the biggest challenge with that. And then we have also heard some comments from the staff since we proposed it that they would like to see some sort of a bathhouse nearby. And that would trigger some more concerns on our part, because then, so that's just, so that's a different kind of consideration that we have to take into account. But in general, a splash pad doesn't necessarily have any other concerns than the other fountain that we used to have, because even that fountain needed to have that all the treatment and everything, because there is always a chance that somebody will reach out and put their hand in the water and then put that hand in the mouth. So there's always chance, right? So the filtration system has to be high grade. But yeah, the maintenance wise, once the fountain is turned off, it's actually just becomes a plaza, and you can put a Christmas tree on it in the winter if you want it. So,
right. I appreciate that. That's good information, and we'll have to see how. Something we might want to check with our parks in Arlington about the issues there, because we've done some pretty fancy things in our parks recently, whether those or playgrounds, and it ends up being the sustainability issue. So good. Right. Thanks again. I'm looking for any other thoughts or comments that we might have from commission members. Anything there? Okay, well, again, I really appreciate you all coming and showing us what you've got here. I mean, I think some of us do get concerns that we go through a SPRC process, and we have all the architecture and the civil engineering and a landscape plan, and maybe we're just being paranoid or something like that, but it seems like on having non-insignificant changes to landscape plans coming back that we hear about, and we just wonder if there could be sometimes better coordination. But I'm not saying that's necessarily an issue with this project, because it seems like you're making a certain decision just on the fountains themselves. And so anyway, again, appreciate you all coming and
Bill, I do
talking
see
with
2
tonight.
hands raised,
Marco?
actually.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Barker and Commissioner Gregory.
Oh, Jill, sorry, I didn't see you there. Okay.
Oh, no,
Please,
I
Jill.
thought I lowered it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
don't see those, Marco. Okay, yeah, I know I've heard of other issues, people seeing different things here. So in
I
any
mean,
case,
if I
thanks.
prolong the meeting, I could come up with something, I'm sure.
Good, thanks, Jill. All right, again, thank you very much for coming, and we appreciate it, and good luck with everything. And yeah, maybe some of us will look at the plant list, and you might hear some other comments from people. All right.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Tom.
Great. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. At this point, we have the staff report. Marco, did you have anything different or new? I know we had a couple of suggestions or ideas on
Yeah.
clarifying or making sure when we're talking about parks, what they are, where they're located, and all that.
Right.
But, I don't know, do you have anything else?
No, not necessarily for the staff reports. I just did want to acknowledge that there has been some hiccups with regards to the website upgrade within the county's website, and certain links not being matched up to what they used to be. So I know there has been some work that's currently being done by our communications teams, by our webmasters, and everyone else within the county. So we're trying to get that squared away as soon as possible. But I think you should all have access to the new link to the Park and Recreation Commission webpage. If not, I can certainly drop it on into the chat as well.
Good, thank you very much. I know we like to update websites every once in a while, and I haven't tried it yet. I know that the issue I always had with the website was the search engine, and I think a lot of us have found out over the years, well, just Google it. And but I don't know, maybe that's been improved on or updated. We'll have to see. Thanks. Okay, let's see. Why don't we move on to commission member reports? Anybody, please chime in, or we could look for Marco if you see a hand raised, and anything going on. First of all, I just spend a little more time with it tonight if we want to.
Colt's hand up.
Good. Colt, did you want to first talk about the deer survey? Because this is, among other things, that I wanted to talk about a little later in the meeting, about ideas for upcoming meetings or other things where it's important for us to take what we call a leadership role on things, or have a strong stand on certain issues. Did you want to start out talking about that?
Yes, I'd be happy to do that. So if you hadn't, one of the newer pieces of news is that Arlington County did complete a aerial drone survey of deer in Arlington, and it was done by a consultant. And what it was done, the findings were that out of 26 square miles, and we could actually look at 22 square miles, we had 290 deer. And that 290 deer was considered this is by the contractor, a sustainable population given the kind that we have. Just to give you a general, if you're in a forested area, about 13 deer per square mile, 13 to 15 deer per square mile is a pretty good notion of what the carrying capacity could do. In terms of Arlington, we've got 2.3 square miles of park space, and the rest of the green space happens to be in our yards. And under that metric, we should probably have fewer than 40 deer. We have way more than that in terms of deer. So the first step was to discover how big the problem is, and now we know that we have too many deer. The next part of that is going to be, we have to conduct a detailed assessment of that, We have to have public engagement. And I mean, Arlington does things the right way. I mean, we talk to people about it. We look at alternatives. After we've done the public engagement, we come up with a deer management plan and implementation plan if that's what's required. So that's where we are, and it's been. We know that several groups in Arlington have gone on and talked about this and talked to, had over 60 different public meetings and talked to over 1,000 people on this issue to raise awareness. And I think there'll be some more of that going on. So that's where we are with the deer survey.
Great, thanks very much, Colt. And so do you still think it'd be a good idea to have someone come in here to talk about it? Or do you think at this point, the report you've given us is good enough?
I'm not nearly as persuasive as Bill Browning, but I don't think I think it would be nice if we can have it on the schedule to take a more detailed look at that issue. In terms of our public parks, deer are a very important issue. And from the brief of PRC, not just the brief of an Arlington homeowner, but from PRC's perspective, we're trying to ensure that we have nice green canopy, tree canopy, and an under canopy that comes up to replace it. And the problem that we're having is that we have some nice mature trees in our parks. I'm amazed that we have the canopy that we do, but we don't have anything underneath it. Mm-hmm. There's nothing to replace it. The little oak trees that should be growing up are not being replaced. They're being eaten up. Mm-hmm. So it's not an issue that's going to affect us today, but it's going to affect us in 10 years for sure. Trees die and they need to be replaced by that mid canopy. We don't have one. And that's a serious issue. As you go further, for us to protect things like our natural resource conservation areas and some very nice green areas in our parks, we have to protect ourselves against the deer. And this is just my opinion, but it's a case where if you're doing nothing, if we don't do anything, we're sort of favoring the deer because the deer will win. We will have fewer trees. We will have fewer plants. We will have fewer insects, and we will have less wildlife by doing nothing. That's sort of the result of it. So anyway, that's my pitch, and you could hear the same pitch in a half an hour, in a half an hour presentation with all the appropriate facts.
Well, thanks, Colt. That's a pretty darn good pitch. And so, Peter, did you have some thoughts on that?
Well, I was wondering thank you, Colt. I was wondering what the position of the Parks and Recreation Department is and what they're planning, how they're involved and what they're planning to do about it. This is the kind of topic that could balloon into an unbelievably lengthy citizen-wide conversation about a million aspects about deer. And I agree, A, that we should focus on the parks part of the equation, and B, what the professionals are saying and doing and thinking.
Well, I mean, the professional, the opinion of the contract team that does these nationwide in their published survey, they came right out and said, we got too many deer.
No, I don't mean that. I mean,
but in terms of actions to be taken.
Yeah, by the Parks Department.
Right. So the actual actions to be taken have not been developed. And I would say our Parks and Recreation Department is following, I would say, routine Arlington procedure to say, okay, we're going to gather all the facts. Now the next step is they're going to hire someone to do an assessment of the raw data that they have, more than I gave you in my 5-minute overview. And then the next step after that would be have some public engagement, much like organizations like Arlington Regional Master Naturalist and the Master Gardeners and the Tree Stewards have sort of been doing in the volunteer sector. And then develop a deer management plan. And then if the plan says we need to do something, well, then we'll have to do something. So those are the next steps that Department of Parks and Recreation has outlined.
So is Parks and Rec the lead agency?
Yes.
Okay.
Right, right.
Are any other agencies involved?
Well, I'd have to say that we had, at this stage, no, but in the actual implementation and the actual data collection, yes, Arlington County Police Department were worked very closely because we had to close off streets and make areas safe for drone operation. But in terms of a decision-making body, the plan and that responsibility is going to be with parks.
So it's just so I can understand the flow of things here. You think the Parks Department is going to look to the Parks Commission for input, guidance, leadership, or the Parks Commission is going to look to the Parks Department for leadership and us reacting to that?
Maybe that's more of a Bill question.
Okay, Bill.
Well, it is a good question. For one thing, I'd say we have taken initiative in joining with other groups over the last several months in terms of asking about the issue, and I think we produced a letter or two on this issue that have gone to the county board, and so we would hope to continue to be, if it's a park and rec department process, when we get to a public engagement, and that's going to be the big issue. You can imagine and we've already seen the what do you call them? The politics of this. What are we gonna do to try to mitigate this? And you end up with the culling, and we look at what Fairfax and Montgomery County do, and they apparently, in National Park Service, they apparently have some very successful processes there. And so there's a lot of people who, unless we heard otherwise, would say we should do what they're doing. And that would be, that might be the stance that we would continue to have from the Park and Rec Commission. But then we're going to have to think about or answer to a lot of the what you might hear public or neighborhood concerns or issues about killing Bambi, frankly. Yeah. And but that's what we do. That's the way we've done it in Arlington. And we can make our stance, and then ultimately our role is advisory to the county board, and we talk with the Park and Rec Department on a lot of different things, but ultimately that's our role.
I'm just anxious that somebody with professional knowledge kind of takes the lead on this and doesn't just throw it up in the air to 250,000 people with strong opinions about things to like beat it to death publicly in the editor type of thing.
That could be an issue. We do beat things to death sometimes, especially when we went through the public spaces master plan for 4 years. We had, as you know, we had several different issues that one might argue got beaten to death. And but I would argue that's something we have to respect. Marco,
can I get in here, Bill?
Oh, yeah, okay. Jill and then Marco. Yeah.
Thank you. Peter, I really appreciate your questions, but this is not writing on a blank slate. I mean, as you know, the deer issue has been building for around 20 years. And, Fairfax and other jurisdictions have taken steps in the past. Some people would argue they're not effective and so on. So I think we're in the process now of really getting down to the nitty gritty on joining the genuine issue of, are those types of things effective? And if not, what is effective? What can we actually do? My concern right now, since we're talking about it, is that the county Parks and Rec staff is not acting quickly enough. But I don't actually know what their timeline is. But I do know that the parks are suffering significantly. And so I feel a very strong sense of urgency to get this addressed. So sorry, I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Marco.
Yeah, I wanted to just follow up on those points. So I know, Bill, you and I have talked about potentially having staff talk to the commission about this very subject. So that is something that we are investigating either for November or December of this year.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's would be a good, thank you. That would be a good place for us to engage with staff on that and express our feelings, our strong feelings, our soft feelings. Probably, hopefully, a lot of strong feelings on that. Good. Okay, let's. Thank you. Good discussion. Why don't we move on? I see that. I don't know. Is Gerald Brandt still here for APS? Gerald, I don't know if you had anything to that you wanted to share with respect to any developments on school projects. I know I'm trying to think of what we're working on in the schools, except for some planning. I know we've got the Cardinal School stormwater project that's supposedly coming up. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so they're working on, I guess, phase 2 of the stormwater. So I asked for an update, but I didn't get one. So hopefully I'll have one for the next meeting.
That'd be great. Yeah, I thought I'd seen something about people seen it. Cardinal School is up and running and all that. And you look at a pretty nice playground there and play area, but they've got a big dirt spot where the playing field used to be, and that's where that a stormwater retention facility is going to be placed before they cover it over and hopefully have another beautiful playing field there. But that'd be great to get an update on that. We appreciate that.
Yeah, and the other one, the Ed Center, it's
yeah,
slowly, but it should be ready for 22 school year.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate it. Moving down the list there, I sent a longer. I was getting lazy about editing things in myself, but sent a longer than usual piece on the Clarendon sector plan update. And the big issue there is, the major issue there is going to be the nature of that open space that hopefully will take over a lot of that Fairfax Drive area there. And they're still working on it, and we've had some fairly specific questions about what's going on there. And always tried to push for, whenever we're dealing with a potential private development and what the community benefits are from that private development, is to try to maximize, and that's been our strategy for quite a few years, to try to maximize the open space or the funds potentially for open space or parks that can come out of the private development. And among other things, that's what we're looking for there. And fortunately, Sarah's, I see she here. Sarah is agreed to kind of take over as our representative, because Steve Finn was our representative on this, and with Steve leaving the commission, Sarah's going to be following this, and we'll have to see how long it lasts. Anyway.
You say that so ominously, Bill.
I don't know. I just didn't. Sorry, Sarah. I just didn't see what the last schedule was. I thought they were getting fairly near the end on it, but we'll see. I don't know if have you seen anything on the schedule?
Yeah, I have not. That was something I was hoping to learn tonight, but then they pushed the meeting back. So. Yeah,
that's right. Sarah was graciously going to go sacrifice herself at the Clarendon sector plan tonight and not come to our meeting, but it was interesting that they canceled that. That happens every once in a while with these LRPC and SPRC processes. So anyway, let's see. David, I'm just moving down the list of Forestry and Natural Resources Commission, no updates. Cold, I don't know if you had any anything you wanted to offer up on the Forestry and Natural Resources plan?
Well, it sort of ties into the deer survey results, but it is, in terms of coordination and looking ahead, it's certainly plausible that the Forestry and Natural Resources plan would have a component for deer management, whatever that looked like. Not the plan itself, but that the overall approach should include an approach to deer management. And that's something we've been pushing for in the last 2 Interjag meetings.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, our experience when we were doing a lot of the work on the public spaces master plan, there's certain things we could have detailed prescriptions on, or having done the analysis on with the working with the consultant and the staff. And you could say, yeah, we should do this, this, and this. And then the other areas that required, future work or whatever, or future explanation of the details, such as your example of deer management. You had a statement in there. You had some fairly strong statement about what was expected to be done moving forward. And so I would think that'd be the way to go with that, with the deer management issue too. Thank you. Let's see, moving on, a couple of us sat in on meetings on the Pentagon City PDSP, and having offered quite a few comments over a period. And I think the commission also helped with some of this, and we'll see what the subsequent versions of that plan will be. Let's see. There's a discussion on Macy's, and Dean and Melissa has volunteered to kind of shadow Dean on this one on the Macy's project. And I'm not sure what really will be involved, if nothing on open space, except we always like to trust the biophilic aspects of things. I don't know, Dean, did you have anything else to offer on that, or anything you know about scheduling there?
Well, it does appear that based on Matt Pfeiffer's submittal of the table as of October 24th anyway, the table of preliminary site plans, that it's moved from draft stage, so to speak, to getting ready now for preliminary site plan and SPRC meeting possibly. I would say it's going to happen sooner rather than later, maybe in a couple of weeks, and we'll have our first crack at getting in some comments on behalf of the commission, such as one thing that's come up in discussion or emails back and forth between Melissa and I is bird safety. I was at a meeting of the Bluemont Civic Association where the developers, architects presented working drawings, and they never mentioned bird safety, but Melissa was at a meeting and she heard that bird safety windows apparently were included. I'll hand off to Melissa about that point. Melissa?
Great, yeah. Melissa, yeah.
So I attended let me get the date. Looks like the October 12th, Ballston's redevelopment with the Ballston, Virginia Square Civic Association. And I specifically asked about bird safety, as that's an interest of mine, and I thought it was very relevant. And they said, yes, they said bird safety was considered. I didn't get much more specifics on that, so I think we should ask about the specifics, but she seemed to answer that very quickly and right away. I also asked about the native plants, and they said, yes, native plants. One thing I do find a bit frustrating is when they kept mentioning this beautiful balcony on the 3rd floor for like plants and features and all this. And then I said, is it available to the public? And they said, well, the wine bar would be, but not the plants. And I'm like, interesting. So I thought that was something of note to maybe look further into. Because apparently the wine bar and the grocery store are somehow combined. But yeah, on the bird features, they said yes, but I think we should look into the specifics on that, as well as what native plants can get a plant list.
Great, thanks, Melissa. I appreciate that. And Colt, and I think Colt was going to mention something else in a minute with respect to visit on Penn Place, but I appreciate that. Colt and David have been asking about this, and I think Dean helped out with the last project on pushing for this down in Roslyn. So, and there has been movement, and David and I a couple of months ago actually met with county board member with respect to this process and trying to move forward to get this, because it tends to be, it's a planning department process, the way it works out and the whole site plan process, that it's a planning department priority, or it should be, on this in terms of getting formal language on this, on our projects. But thank you. And then you made the comment about, this has been asked many times over the years at these projects where you see these wonderful open spaces on second balconies or interior areas to a project, and the question gets asked, well, is this going to be available to the public? And sometimes things can be made available to the public, but other than that, they tend to be private, and we're building some really fancy private apartments and condos, as you know, and so they tend to be, it could be wonderfully landscaped, but they aren't necessarily available to the public. And yet the concept of biophilic design has something to be said for it, on balconies or green roofs or things like that. And so sometimes we do what we can on these things. So Colt, did you have, or Peter, did you have? Or let me go to Colt first, and then Peter, you had something to say.
I would like to tag along with Melissa here on bird friendly. So we have a newcomer in Washington in Penn Place, and Amazon is very eager to do a world-class job in the buildings that they create, and much like hopefully other developers and designers that come to Arlington are learning that we are very much interested in sort of biophilic aspects, and some of those are bird friendly. So just this week, I was in a meeting with the National Audubon Society Director of Bird Safety, with the American Bird Conservancy Director of Window Glass Evaluation, and as well as members of the design team for Amazon. And what we came back with was very enlightening. Arlington has a standard, the green building standard for bird safety, and it really only applies to the first 3 stories. And in a building like the Helix that has proposed to have plants all the way up, that kind of approach just is not going to be adequate. And rather than saying, well, we're going to meet the minimum design requirements in Arlington, it was, we're going to do the best we can to protect birds. That was their opening statement. It wasn't, what should we do? Our goal is to protect birds, whether they're migrating, whether they're local, from strikes. And I thought, what an interesting thing, because it didn't just focus on glass, the non-reflective glass. It focused on the actual structure of the buildings and how the windows are framed and what the kind of light reflection and refraction occurs off of secondary surfaces. It was an excellent meeting. And what, in terms of windows, we've been hearing, we're going to use state-of-the-art glass that has a threat factor of 25. And when I did my research, I couldn't find much lower than that. Well, it turns out Amazon's come through, and they're using glass with a threat factor of 9. Unbelievably good glass.
Great.
So I mean, the thoughtful design, the other actions that they're taking, the only thing we could add to that, and we will, is think about lighting considerations, and we're not quite sure. We were so enthralled with the level of discussion and the knowledgeable discussion we had with threat factors and bird threat factor ratings that forgot to ask about dark sky and downward lighting. At any rate, the notion here is they've received the word and they could lead the way and maybe pilot some very interesting solutions for other Arlington developers. So I thought it was a very promising approach.
Well, great, thank you, Cole. Appreciate that. Yeah. Any other thoughts on that? No, let's see. We're moving down here. Let's see. I had a discussion about the Wendy's site, if you know where that is, the former Wendy's in the courthouse area, and big change in usage there. And again, I didn't edit myself very well, so I just put in a lot of the things we're looking for, and even talking about what thing we've initiated over several years, and we get here and we're trying to get open space improvements or even funds or resources for park improvements. We've done a pretty good job of asking for and obtaining certain amounts of money as community benefits when these projects come in and they want to add on 8 or 9 more stories. And so I have an example there of something we might want to ask for here as this process moves forward. And so if there's not any other questions about that. Sports Commission, Mark Lincoln, do you want to talk about the working group you've been dealing with there?
The combating hate working group?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've had 3 meetings. The first meeting was just a general meet and greet, and we discussed sort of the mission of the group. And then the second meeting, we all left the first meeting with homework assignments, basically to do research on sports organizations and how they're handling the issue. And everybody took one or more sports organizations to research their policies, procedures, guidelines, reporting, and produce a report. There was a template that to sort of guide our research, and then we put together a template for a presentation on the research that each of us had done, and several of the members of the group presented their findings at the last meeting, and so that's basically where the group is at this point. In the upcoming meeting, which is next Monday, there'll be a few more reports. There's, as you might imagine, there's a lot of sports organizations. It runs the gamut from professional to amateur, college, youth, just about every sports organization we could think of. Both paid athletes and then various Olympic sports and things like that. So there's still some reports that we'll probably go over at the next meeting, and we're going to start working on how we want to distill the information we have from those sports organizations down into something to use and provide to local organizations within Arlington County on how to deal with this issue, guidelines, procedures, policies, so forth. And one of the things we're going to look at the next meeting is which sports organizations we think are doing a really good job of this, and ones that we want to take some things away from. and maybe use in what we finally produce. So that's kind of where we stand. I presented a report at the last meeting on FIFA, since I'm involved with soccer. So I took the job of looking at FIFA and how they're handling the issue in soccer from a worldwide standpoint. There's also we also had some other members of the group take some of the professional leagues in soccer as well, because even though soccer is sort of managed at the highest level by FIFA, each country has a federation, and then there's regional federations, and then there's professional leagues. So it can, not everything that FIFA does is required to be used by everybody else. So it's very interesting how it all breaks down. So we still got a lot of work to do, and I'm not sure what our final product will be. That's one of the things we're going to discuss next Monday, but I think we're making good progress.
Great. Well, thank you very much. A couple of questions. So since you aren't sure about the product, maybe you mentioned it, you aren't sure about what anticipated schedule for producing something is?
We're going to start at least with an outline, a basic outline, I think, by the end of the meeting this Monday, just from a really high level. And I think the goal is to produce something in the first few months of next year. So by then we will have met 6 times. I don't know if we're going to meet in December. I think we are. So we may have met 6 or 7 times by then. Mm-hmm. One of the questions on the table is what we produce, is it going to be something that's going to be required for use in Arlington County? Our partner organizations with DPR are going to be required to follow these guidelines. There's a lot of discussion on how the actual implementation is going to be going forward. But I think we'll have at least a draft in January or February. I would think that would be the plan.
Great. Well, thanks for the update, and thanks very much for doing that and getting involved in that. So, okay, what else we have here? Not much else. I appreciate Neil sent in a couple things on the Vision Zero. We had been asked to be involved with Vision Zero, and so Neil's been sitting on some of those meetings, and along with his work on the Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Just to wrap things up here today, and if there's any other things that people have, I don't think we have any letters to the county board. We've been quite a few this year. Just on this PRC transition discussion, I just wanted to mention, I mentioned to a couple people that this just has to do with me finishing up my work on the commission at the end of the year. And it's been 8.5 years, I think, by the time I get there, and I will have done the chairmanship for 4 years, which is a little bit longer than I originally expected to do. And so anyway, we'll be dealing with this. I've been talking with county board members about this, and in terms of who would be the next chair. The natural thing is, and this is something county board decides, and I think in their December meeting, it's usually the vice chair. And so I've talked to Shruti about things and done some other meetings on that. And so also, just for people who are new to the commission, traditionally what we do is around December, we will have put together, one of us will have drafted a kind of a report for what was done, what the commission did in the past year, and then at some point, usually in January, I think we kind of finalize what we might call an action plan for the next year. And I just wanted to say, I've talked to a couple people. I know Peter's got some thoughts or ideas, areas. And as I was telling Trudy, if she ends up being chair, that there's certain things that I learned from my predecessors, and I've done a certain way, and I have no pride in all of a sudden the commission going in a certain different direction or different styles in terms of meetings and how agendas are set up, that kind of thing. And Colt has brought up some thoughts or things to push on, and some of the other folks there. So if you have ideas about what the commission might wanting to be doing heading into the new year, maybe we can talk about this a little bit next month, and then even into December too. So I don't know if anybody had any thoughts about that. We can think about some of these things as we go forward. Peter.
Well, first of all, Bill, thank you for your incredible service, and it's wonderful that you've devoted yourself to this so deeply and so well. And it'll be great having you for the next few, what is it, 2 more, you'll be in charge for 2 more sessions, right?
I think so. I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah,
Well, this is good, giving us a little bit of advance notice. I just had a thought, and I don't even know the procedure with the commission or anything. I'll just throw this at you, Bill. I would love to know, I would love for the county to figure out approximately how many people use each park. And I know this isn't necessarily an easy thing to figure out, but I think it would be a super useful metric for the county to know, for us to know. It has all kinds of ramifications for budgeting, for successfulness of parks, unsuccessfulness of parks, a million other factors. And so I was wondering if I could ask Marco to initiate that process, or if you could ask Marco to initiate that process, or if the commission could discuss that and vote on it. I don't know what procedure to use, but my guess is the county doesn't at this moment know how many people use each park, but there are certain ways of getting some estimates along those lines, and I would love to know that number.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask a question on that. I'm trying to think if I've seen a few years ago sitting in on a seminar about this. Have you seen other communities doing this, and do you know how they do it? I thought when I saw this, it was a situation where they got a bunch of intern type people to look at some of the parks and sitting in. I know it's kind of a survey type situation. I don't know how that's done. And the other question I have is, I'm wondering, the first thing one might want to do is check with the people who did the public spaces master plan, because they collected all kinds of data. And obviously that wasn't in the public spaces master plan. And I'm wondering if that had been discussed and they thought about not doing it. I think conceptually I can see that, especially for some of our, certain parks. Maybe you have a big park that you wonder if it's being used at all. But then again, we'll go back to the situation of the issue of we have so many neighborhood parks, and what are people going to say about questioning their, the facilities in their parks or the resources going into the park maintenance and that kind of thing. But no, I first thought it's seems like something that we definitely can ask about that. And Marco, maybe I could work with you to check, maybe talk to Arena Lazik, who had done the public spaces master plan. We might check with Carolyn Haynes. She would have a good recollection of any of that kind of thing that was ever done. And I'm going to you, Peter. In all your experience, did you ever see who did this and how it was done in other communities?
Well, some of the big parks, Central Park and the big park in Atlanta and the big park in Houston and other places like that, do studies, and Central Park has done by far the most comprehensive study. No, I would think that probably no city in the country has gotten it down to such a fine-grained level. But I think Arlington could be a leader on this, and I mean, there are probably some cities that have somewhat of an idea, somewhat of a good idea, and I think Arlington could be a leader on this. We're one of the most successful park systems in the country, and we have the advantage of being very small and having a relatively small number of parks. So it's more manageable here than in other places, and it's a well-funded system compared to the others. But it would still be a fairly heavy lift. But I think it's the kind of lift that is worth doing. And of course there's and Marco, you know, maybe you can chime in as to what you know or what you've heard or whatever. But there would be subsidiary ways of estimating even such a strange way as the amount of garbage picked up in each park. It would give a little bit of a hint as to whether a park is well used or not.
No, Peter, that's a really good point. Actually, that would entail significant coordination with not only, as Bill mentioned, maybe folks that have worked within the PSMP like Irina and Caroline, but also touching base with our folks in Parks and Natural Resources, since they would be the ones that do a lot of the managing of a lot of those spaces. So maybe that would be one resource that we can look at further.
Right. And I was going to say, I'm going to turn to Adam in a second, but I mean, you will have natural questions or pushback in terms of resources and budget and all that. Yes, we are fairly well funded. I don't know what kind of issue that would be, but also it would be important to be able to justify how that data would be used and how it could be used. Because I know it's a new thing. It would be an experimental thing, but yeah, I mean, I've seen it, heard about it being done in the past. And again, I think it was in Florida, Miami, or something like that. But there was a study done on where they did that kind of thing. And I don't know how many of the parks did. I mean, we have 149, and one presumably would want to do some prioritizing there if you were to do it. But yeah, Marco, let's get together and do some asking around and see what we can find out there. Adam, did you have a thought on that or something else?
Yeah, actually, I had a couple thoughts, one on that and one other thing. So I just wanted to back Peter's suggestion. I think it's a great idea. I mean, with all the focus on field utilization tracking, I think that's a good kind of complement to that, because I have found over the last couple of years that folks tend to use some of this data in different ways, and there's no way to come back and say, well, balancing that out with the park usage versus the field part of that. And I think it would be good to have numbers to balance out, you know, what we know about field utilization versus utilization of the rest of the parks out there. So I definitely and would be happy to help in any way that I could and participate in that effort. The second thing I wanted to mention was about Zitkala Saw Park. That was the grand opening was this weekend, and Bill was there as well. I'm not sure if anybody else was there, but I just wanted to comment on what with all the divisiveness about renaming things around the country and even in this county with renaming Washington Lee to Washington Liberty, that it was such a great experience to see a park being renamed and having that naming come from the community, that it was initiated by the community. And there were descendants of Zitkala Saw were at the event on Saturday, and there was a land acknowledgement, which is I'm not sure if everybody knows what a land acknowledgement is. It's a thing that is being done to acknowledge the use of the land and its original, it was part of the, Native American lands and how it's been, in a lot of ways taken from them. And so just acknowledging that, and that's being done a lot around the country. And I think it was just, the connection with Zitkala-Sa was just a really a great moment. And I think that we should strive to push for more of that happening when we do some of these park renovations, about thinking about how we might, rename them, and not only rename them, but doing things to make sure people know about what's happening. Like they're planning to do a lot of signage and things around the park to let people know about her her life and what she did, and her activism and artistry and all that kind of stuff. And I think that we should, definitely support that kind of thing when parks are being renovated, is seeing ways in which we can acknowledge local folks and making sure that we're doing that. So I just wanted to kind of mention that.
Oh, thank you very much, Adam. Yeah, sorry, I forgot about mentioning that myself. I appreciate it. And I know that, I think, Peter, you had attended the thing in honor of Eric Gutschall, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to know about Zitkala-Sa, the write-up in Wikipedia is very thorough, and she's really impressive.
Yeah.
I stood next to Mark Schwartz and I said, "Who is she?" And he said, "Well, I'm not 100% sure, but there's a great write-up in Wikipedia, so you can check that out."
Right. Yeah, it was good. And we enjoyed. We had two meetings where, because that's one of our up to now official functions on Park and Rec Commission, is to kind of lead the public process for approving renaming or naming of new parks sometimes there. So,
great.
Melissa.
Yes, I just wanted to say I didn't get a chance to attend the ribbon cutting, but I did visit the park after, and it was very full in a very joyous way. I think it was a Saturday morning, I believe, or a Sunday. Really great park usage. I was very impressed. So just thumbs up for me on that. I just casually going by, I saw it being used by a ton of people. Thought it was great.
Good. And that's a reminder to anybody and everybody, when you see announcements for, whether it's public engagement events concerning, if there's a tour of a potential property or site or public engagement process, or something like this, a grand opening, it's fun to go. And what we've tried to do over the last several years is really kind of make our presence known, and just hey, I'm with the Park and Rec Commission, and just you learn things and people know you're there, and I think we've come to believe that people pay attention to some of our thoughts on many different issues, whether it's the public parks or some of these other development issues that are going on in our growing urban area. So thanks again, Melissa. I appreciate that. Jill.
Hi, Bill. I just wanted to chime in and say thank you so much for your amazing service all this time. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and I don't want to be premature in saying goodbye, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to say how much I've appreciated your leadership and all the mentoring that you've done for me, and I will miss you. But I hope you're not going to go too far away, because I still want to call you up and ask you stuff. So
No,
thank you.
Well, thank you. That's very nice of you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm pretty good about keeping emails and copies of things that I've put together, and computers are large things now, so we can store things away. And I plan to be around for any of you or whoever there. I'm still doing a few other things in Arlington, but I thought it was time just to let some other people run the show and take over. But again, thanks. All right then. I don't know if I see anybody else. Marco, if you don't, what is our next meeting? The 16th? Is that what it is?
Yes,
Okay.
Tuesday, November 16th.
Tuesday, and that's an early one, folks. That's
yeah. Actually, our next two will be early. So Tuesday, November 16th, and then December will be December 14th.
Great. All right then. thank you very much. It was nice to have some more casual discussions on a few things tonight, and we might be a little bit more filled up in terms of agenda next month. But any questions people have or thoughts on moving forward with the commission, or other ideas, or dumb questions, good questions, please let me know. All right, let's go ahead and unless I hear any objections, we will close the meeting for this month, and we'll see you next month.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Bill.
Good night.
Thank you, Bill.
Bye-bye.
Good night.